Muhammad Umar Farooq Biological Video. Please make sure to subscribe, like and share. Ask the question for answer and comment about the artwork. You can also answer question to each other for solving the problem. So today we will discuss about the ketogenic diet and their physiological aspect. On the other hand, the atkin diet. So both diet is equal to each other but some slightly difference which that depend on the fat and protein. So both diet contain low carbs, but the higher amount of fat as well as protein. So here we will discuss about the protein and both diet contain protein quantity. So here is the I want to say that the different type of food which that we will eat uh, contain vegetables, protein, fats. So that's fats contain here is the saturated and unsaturated fat. So these all is the carbohydrate contain cereal, grains, bread, burgers, and different type of processed food. So the carbohydrates contain sugar molecules, which that is the homopolysaccharide and heteropolysaccharide, which that contain a starch or amylopectin. On the other hand, protein contain amino acids and fat contain fatty acids as well as lipids. So the lipoprotein will combine to give, and that's a lipid formation. So the fat is important to produce hormone steroid. So next in this video we will discuss here. So first of all we will discuss about the unsaturated fats and saturated fats. So first of all I want to say that the saturated fats contain a saturation of hydrogen is more as compared to the unsaturated fatty acid. So the saturated fats contain a single bond. It means the long chain fatty acid and short chain fatty acid. So the short chain fatty acid is healthy as compared to the long chain fatty acid. But in reality is we will eat the moderate amount of fat is not harmful. So here is the saturated fats which contain carboxylic acid, carboxylic group, and that is the contain fatty acid. Fatty acid means the acidic medium created into the blood. So here is the unsaturated fatty acid which contain a double bond. So it means the carbon number alpha carbon contain beta and gamma which contain a double bond. So carbon number 3 contain if double bond is known as omega 3 fatty acid. On the other hand, if carbon number 6 contain double bond is known as the omega 6 fatty acid. On the other hand, short chain fatty acid is also known. So here is the balanced diet is known as the atkin diet, which contain a 30% fat and 50% protein and 20% carbohydrate. So it means the protein is higher as compared to the ketogenic diet. So the ketogenic diet means the ketone will be produced when we will eat the ketogenic diet. It means the fat is high content is 90% and 10% protein as well as carbohydrate is 1%. So here I am drawing the digestive system which contain stomach, and here is the duodenum which duodenum contain enterocyte. So the enterocyte contain here is the blood vessel, and is the lumen. Lumen contain glucose, fat and protein which that digest, and glucose move inside enterocyte by the GLUT2 channel, and that's transport is due to the ATP is pump for exchange of ion. On the other hand, that fat is the dissolved into the lymphatic system to go into the blood vessel. But on the other hand, protein is also same mechanism like glucose but different. Here we will not discuss about the whole detail. So there is the fat convert into the micelle, and micelle go into the chylomicron is known as a very low density lipoprotein, and amino acid is also breakdown of the protein to move into the blood vessel. So here is the sugar, amino acid and VLDL will move into the adipose tissue, either adipose tissue or into the peripheral tissue, which that is the muscle and other part. So important to note that is the receptor. So receptor is the basically here we will discuss about the balanced diet. That is the calorie under the range 1500 calorie in both. So I want to say that the whole mechanism for understanding the ketogenic diet. So here is the receptor which contain insulin receptor. When insulin bind into the adipose tissue or other tissue to move the glucose inside for normalize the glucose into the blood. So here is the insulin production from the pancreas, that is the islet of Langerhans. The beta cell produce insulin, and alpha cell produce glucagon, and delta cell produce somatostatin, which that is used for the growth hormone. So what is the mechanism of beta cell? They produce insulin, and insulin is the anabolic hormone. Anabolic means that is deposition of glucose into the adipose tissue to increase the adipocyte and adipose proliferation. So it means the fat will be become higher when we will eat the glucose. So it means the balanced diet is different as compared to the ketogenic diet. So we are discussing about the balanced diet, which that stimulate the insulin, and that's basically here is the low carb, low calories, which that is protein, carbohydrate, and vegetable. On the other hand, high calorie contain fats, but high calorie content fats is not harmful if we will eat the basic if we will eat the with understanding good. So here is the pancreas which produce insulin when glucose level will be high into the blood. So the insulin production is here, and here is the glucose level will be high. So the sugar stimulate the insulin 10 times more as compared to the amino acid, and amino acid 3 times more as compared to the fat. So the fat is usually neutral. It's not stimulate the insulin. So important to know that the insulin will not stimulate, so it means the adipose tissue will not develop. So obesity is inhibition. So here is the insulin receptor which that bind with the insulin to move the sugar into the tissue, for example adipose tissue as well as peripheral tissue, and that tissue will allow the sugar inside, and unuseful sugar, which that is the excess of sugar, is deposited into the adipose site as a fat storage mechanism. So that is known as the lipogenesis, because sugar will convert into the acetyl CoA, and that's produce a fat. So it will produce energy or storage glycogen muscle. So the sugar will also convert into the glycogen into the muscle and liver. So important to know that glycogen is depend on the work hard. If we will work hard, so the glycogen storage will be amplified. So here the liver which use a glycogen, and muscle which use the glycogen, and protein synthesis of protein into the liver to store into the muscle. So that is known as the anabolism. Anabolism means the smaller molecule will convert into the larger molecule to become a structural part of the muscle as a protein and glycogen from the sugar. So that is known as anabolism of the type of metabolism. So here I am drawing the graph which that is stimulate the insulin. So the sugar will increase the more insulin, because that is the high amount, and that insulin will increase. So it means the anabolism will be occur, and peripheral tissue and adipose tissue will be feed the glucose by the insulin stimulation, by the binding of insulin receptor to increase the fat, because unuseful sugar will convert into the fat. On the other hand, that's amino acid which that is slightly less stimulation of insulin as compared to the sugar, and this means the protein is best than the sugar. So that is why the balanced diet contain 50% protein. On the other hand, that is the meal which contain fat is the high amount of fat which stimulate very slightly insulin production. So that means, what is the meaning of insulin inhibition? So insulin inhibition is the basically not stimulate the adipose tissue to feed the glucose. So here is the pancreas which that's contain inhibits the insulin production from fats but stimulate the production of insulin from glucose, and that means the glucose will accumulate into the blood vessel to increase the insulin. So here is the fat will inhibit the production of adipose tissue because its insulin will not bind to the adipose site. So the adipose tissue required insulin for sugar absorption, so that's important. But the fat is also in the form of low density lipoprotein or high density lipoprotein. So the low density lipoprotein contain apoprotein and phospholipids, triglycerides, fatty acids, as well as other short chain and long chain fatty acids. So the adipose tissue required here is the insulin for sugar absorption. On the other hand, that is important to know that when fat will be eaten to convert into low density lipoprotein is known as the very low density lipoprotein is known as the chylomicron. So here is the insulin which that is stimulate the adipose tissue and bind the insulin receptor to increase the fat proliferation, adipocyte proliferation. So here I am zooming out the adipocyte which contain a fat storage. So the fat storage is the mechanism which that are the breast, leg of the female. On the other hand, that the abdominal fat are present into the male. So our sugar will be move inside. Here is the zooming out, and there are many receptors which that is first we will discuss just on about the insulin receptor. So here is the insulin receptor. So lipogenesis will be occur when we will eat the sugar. So what is the meaning of it? It means the protein and sugar will stimulate the higher amount of insulin production. So when insulin will produce more, the peripheral tissue will be grow more fat production, and that means the obesity will be occur. That's the fat metabolism is less. So on the other hand, we will discuss about the ketogenic diet. So the ketogenic diet means the cholesterol and fat which that is enter inside of the liver due to the scavenger receptor from the bloodstream, which that is the low density lipoproteins come inside from the dietary fat. So here I am drawing the blood vessel which that's contain high density lipoprotein which that's come from the which that is the empty and which that's come from the liver after the modification of apoprotein E, C, D and A. And that's apoprotein contain here is the high density lipoprotein and low density lipoprotein. High density lipoprotein mean that is the less amount of cholesterol is known as the empty. High density lipoprotein is empty mean the less amount of cholesterol. On the other hand, the high density lipoprotein filled is known as the basically filled with the cholesterol. So it means the filled with the cholesterol from the absorption of the plasma membrane, and there are many ways to absorb the cholesterol. So here is the apo E, which that is bind with the cholesterol which that are present into the plasma membrane, and that's produce oxidation, and oxidation means the water soluble cholesterol, so which that's absorbed inside of the high density lipoprotein to become a fill, and that's fill go into the liver, and liver will excrete through the bile. So that's not harmful because so here is the oxidation of cholesterol to enter inside to become a fill, and that's go into the liver. So here is the plasma membrane. So on the other hand, that is mean the filled high density lipoprotein is give the another mechanism to give the lipoprotein lipase enzyme to give the fatty acid and phosphate group as well as cholesterol to the plasma membrane, as well as for the synthesis of hormone in the different tissue which that's used for example the testes which that produce the testosterone. So here is the fatty acid which that is excrete and cholesterol excrete through the bile which that is excess. So what is the meaning of this? That's the ketogenic diet is excrete the excess amount of cholesterol. So that is not harmful because the adipose tissue not growing, as well as the cholesterol will be excrete and fat will be excrete through the bile. So on the other hand, the adipose tissue required insulin for sugar absorption, but insulin is not present. That's ketone will be produced from the fat. So the ketogenesis will be occur. So the ketogenesis is here occur, and that's low density lipoprotein which that's go into the low density lipoprotein receptor to produce beta oxidation, acetyl CoA, as well as production of cholesterol. On the other hand, there are a lot of things by the using of endocytosis to become a endosome and the endolysosome to convert here, and that's excess cholesterol, fats, lipids excrete. So here is also lipoprotein which gives the fat to the peripheral tissue to use as a energy, but insulin is quite low, so it means the anabolism of adipose tissue is not occurring. So remember about that, because anabolism required insulin for the binding of the receptor to increase the glucose incoming of the adipose tissue. So here we will discuss about the cholesterol which that's also convert into the hormone steroid for normal function of the body. For example, testosterone, estrogen, progesterone, cortisol, glucocorticoid, aldosterone, which that is produce the normal function in the male and female reproductive system as well as secondary reproductive system. For example, secondary reproductive characteristics, for example beard and deep voice. So on the other hand, here is the important note is the ketogenic diet. The ketogenic diet inhibits the insulin production. So what is the meaning of insulin production? Insulin inhibit the fat loss will be occur due to the production of ketones into the blood through the fat which that is adipose tissue. So it means the increased growth hormone because somatostatin produce the gamma delta cell produce of the islet of Langerhans to produce the growth hormone. On the other hand, the liver also insulin like growth factor create to incoming the glucose for using it. On the other hand, the blood sugar level normal and glycogenolysis will be occur to decrease the amount of storage. So here is the fat loss, and that is the glucagon activate to catabolize the fat and catabolize the sugar in the form of glycogen to convert sugar. So here is the blood glucose normal, and muscle density will be increased. Why? Because growth hormone increase, and that's protein will be transported, and that's anabolism will be occur. On the other hand, the development and fat loss by lipolysis in adipose tissue. So on the other hand, here is the balanced diet which that stimulate insulin by sugar and protein. So that's protein and sugar stimulate the insulin, that is known as the anabolism formation, and anabolism make the increase the basically adipose tissue development, and that's adipose tissue development is the anabolism. So glycogenesis, lipogenesis will be occur, and that's storage formation. So what is the meaning? You are able to understand that the fat is buffering the insulin, and anabolism of fat deposition decrease and increase the catabolism of fat in the form of in the form of ketogenesis to produce ketones into the blood, used as a energy, which that is the alternate pathway of the carbohydrate.